Hello viewers, welcome to K Diagnostics, Dio here. Today we have a 2004 Freightliner school bus with a C7 cat engine. The complaint on this bus is that there's a hissing noise coming from the rear of the bus. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to go to the back of the bus and confirm the complaint. Once we find out what it is, and then we will know what directions we're going to go to fix this. So let's go to the back of the bus and confirm the complaint. Alright, so I'm under the bus right now. We are in Rusty Land. Can you guys hear the hissing noise? Can you tell where it's coming from? Yeah, you guessed it right here. It's coming from this leveling valve. Can you hear me change the pitch of that sound? So this leveling valve is definitely leaking. So the leak is right here. And this leveling valve actually mirrors the amount of air that goes into these air springs right here, because this is got pneumatic suspension. So this line goes to this air spring, and then the other one here goes across the frame to the other air spring right here on the passenger side. So this is gonna be a quick one. But disconnect this rod. So this rod changes the position of this lever, which increases or decreases the amount of air that goes inside these air springs. Alright, so the driver also stated that the air brake system has been using air faster than usual. And with this type of leak, of course you're going to be losing a lot of air. So this is going to be an easy one. We're going to remove this leveling valve. It's really straightforward. We have to undo this bracket, and then we're going to undo these air lines and disconnect this leveling rod here, and the leveling valve should come off. So I'm gonna start by spraying some WD-40 on these fittings first. And what you don't want to do is disconnecting these lines with air in the system. It's not safe. This can be dangerous. So the next step we're gonna do is I'm gonna go back inside the bus and deplete the air out of the system so we can start disconnecting these lines. And just as a safety measure, I'm gonna put jack stands somewhere down here on the frame. I mean, the air springs should be able to support the frame, but I always like to take some extra safety precautions. So I'm gonna put jack stands along here, somewhere here in the back. And then we're gonna come back here and disconnect these lines so we can remove this leveling valve. So let's go inside the bus and deplete the air out of the system. I'm inside the bus right now, so we're gonna deplete the air out of the brake system. So I'm going to be pumping on the brake pedal until we get the entire system empty. Just keep pumping there, keep pumping. And as you can see, our gauges are reading 0 now. Just keep pumping until you no longer hear any hissing sound. Alright, so I know this has spring e-brakes, but always remember to check your wheels before you start disconnecting any components on the air system. So now the system is completely empty. Let's go back under the bus so we can remove that leveling valve. Alright, so we did deplete the air system, and I also sprayed WD-40 on these fittings here so they can come out easily. So now the next step is going to be depleting these air springs completely. So I'm going to disconnect this rod here. Alright, so I just disconnected this vehicle height adjusting lever here. Alright, so this leveling lever here on the leveling valve, what it does is if you go up this way towards the top of the bus, it actually lowers the ride height. So it lowers the height of the bus by depleting the air from these air springs. But if it goes down, it actually increases air. So if I do this, I mean, because we don't have any air. But if we had enough air in the system, these air bags would be going up. Okay. So now I'm just gonna deplete the air completely. As you can see, they're all saggy right now. So I'm depleting the air completely. Okay. So as you can see now, we got rid of all the air in the air spring. So now we can disconnect the air lines. So these fittings are 16 millimeter fittings. Alright, so the bottom one is disconnected. Now let's disconnect this supply line. Alright, so now I'm gonna disconnect the supply line. So right here, let's get the supply line out of the way. So now I'm gonna disconnect this line. This is the last line. It goes to the air spring down here. Alright, so here comes the last line. I got it disconnected. So now I'm just gonna put it aside. So our leveling valve is basically ready to come out. Alright, so now the last step is gonna be removing these two bolts here that hold the leveling valve bracket on the frame rail. So it's a bolt and a nut on the other side. I'm gonna undo them from the other side where the nut is. So I'm gonna hold the wrench here and undo them from the back. Alright, so here comes the first one, right there. Alright, so I undid the last bolt. Here it comes. So now our leveling valve can be removed. And it was leaking from the dump here. And as you guys can see how messed up and crusty this is. This snap ring actually was coming out already. So this is where the hissing noise was coming from. So it was leaking from here. Alright. So it looks like the exhaust port here wasn't leaking, but it was definitely leaking from the dump. And as you guys can see. So, I mean, this item is not serviceable. We're gonna have to replace the complete leveling valve. I will get a new valve and then bring you guys back up. Alright, so here is our new leveling valve. And as you can see, it looks new and swishy. I installed new air fittings on it. And I also installed it on this new mounting bracket here. So now we're gonna install our leveling valve on the frame. So it has two bolts, one over here, and then another one down here. So we have a two system bolts here. All right, guys, come on. It is Friday. Gotta joke a little bit. So now, let's tighten them. All right, so the first one is tightened. So now I'm gonna tighten the second one. If I can see it. leveling valve is mounted on the frame. It's right there. It's secured. So now the next step is going to be reconnecting our air lines. I'm going to start by connecting this air supply line first. I'm going to adjust it a little bit. Right there. Alright, so right there, the air supply line is tightened. So now I'm going to install this air spring line. Okay. Alright, so the driver's side air spring supply line has been installed. So now let's install the last line, which is this one. And this is for the air spring on the passenger side. Alright, so I'm going to start tightening it. Alright, so the third one is tightened. Easy peasy. So now what's next? The next step is going to be connecting this leveling rod on this leveling lever here on the leveling valve. But before I do that, as you can see, I cannot push this up because there's this pin here that's holding it in place. So I just have to remove this pin and then push it up or down. So what you do is when you push it up, it puts no, I think it's the opposite way. When you go down, it actually puts more air in the air springs. And then when you go up, it actually lets air out. So it reduces the air, the amount of air that goes in the air springs. But before I do that, I'm just gonna put this pin right here and I'll go in the bus, start it. We're gonna fill up the system with air and then we will adjust this as we go so we can install this leveling rod here. So I'll go inside the bus and start it. Alright, so I filled up the air system and as you guys can see, it's quiet back here. This new leveling valve is not leaking. So that's a good sign already. So now what we need to do, we need to adjust the ride height. When I remove this pin that locks this leveling arm down, when I push this arm up, it's going to allow more air to get inside the air spring, which is going to raise the bus. When I push it down, it's actually going to let air out of the air spring, which is going to lower the ride height. So it's going to deplete the air through this exhaust port down here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this pin that holds this lever down. So now watch this. When I push this up, do you see it going up? So if I go down, it's letting air out of the air spring, which is eventually going to lower the ride height. So this way we're going high. So right there, right there, the bus is going high. Right there, stops. If I want to deplete the air, so I'll go down. And I hope the camera is picking that up, but so moving the lever down lowers the ride height. So if you bring it in the center position here, it stops. If you go up, it puts more air in the air springs, which raises the right height. So now what we need to do is we're going to use this bolt here to connect our leveling rod to this right here. So this guy is going to come just right there. So right there. Alright, so I just connected my leveling rod to this lever here. So now I'm gonna put a washer here and then a nut. Okay. So I'm gonna tighten that nut now, and that nut is a 11 millimeter. Alright, so as you can see, we tightened that nut. So that's it. Can you tell the difference? So we have a fix. We don't have a leak, and there's air in the system. I'm gonna show you the air spring here. Do you see how hard the air spring is? So we don't have a leak. So our leak has been fixed. I'm gonna go back inside the bus and start it, fill up the air system one more time, and then we'll wrap up this video. Alright guys, so I hope you heard that puff. The release valve on the dryer has released air, so we have reached 125 psi. So we have system pressure right now. And as you can see, this air spring is completely firm. What else do you notice, guys? It's quiet back here. Unbelievable, right? It's quiet. There isn't a hissing noise anymore. This leveling valve is not leaking. Remember, the old one, it was leaking from the dump here, and when I was putting my finger on it, you could hear me change the sound of the leak. So right here, this is quiet, and I'm sure the driver is gonna be happy to get his bus back. So that's it, guys. This is how you remove and replace a leveling valve on the school bus. So I'm gonna leave it right here. I hope you like this video. If you do, give it a thumbs up. If you don't, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you gotta tell me why. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. And while you are down there, ring the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. If this is your first time here, subscribe to my YouTube channel, K Diagnostics. Thanks for watching. See you next time.